Hi class, Mrs. Calvi here. I'm just going to do a quick review on comparing fractions. So in other words, saying what two fractions are less than, greater than, or equal to. And then I'm also going to be reviewing writing decimals as fractions. So let's first compare fractions. Easiest thing to do. So we are going to say we had 2/3 and we are comparing that to 3/4. Easiest thing to do is cross multiply for these, okay? So I'm going to cross multiply. 3 times 3 gives me 9, and I'm going to put the 9 up there because that's going to help me. And then 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 is less than 9, so that means 2/3 is less than 3/4. Okay, so comparing fractions is very simple. Let's do another one. Okay, so if I had... Let's say I had 5/6, and I'm comparing that to 2/4. Okay, so I'm going to cross multiply. 6 times 2 gives me 12. 4 times 5 gives me 20. And because 20 is greater than 12, 5/6 is greater than 2/4. Okay, let's try one more. If we had 1/2 and we were comparing that to 3/6, we are going to cross multiply. 2 times 3 gives me 6. 6 times 1 gives me 6. This tells me that 1/2 is equal to 3/6. All right, so that's pretty simple. Now let's review writing decimals as fractions. Okay, so if I had the decimal 0.25, I'm going to read this as a decimal. So how would I say this? Instead of saying 0.25, this is 25 hundredths. Because the 5 is in the hundredths place, I say that place value. So this is 25 hundredths. So I'm going to just write the fraction I just said. I just said that read 25 hundredths. So the decimal 0.25 is read as 25 hundredths. So I took that and I wrote that in fraction form. But then if you notice, this can definitely be simplified down. When we have 25 and 100, the easiest thing to do, think of money, think of quarters, we can divide both of these by 25. And this would simplify down to 25 divided by 25 is 1. 100 divided by 25 is 4. So that would simplify down to 1/4. You have to remember, for the do now today, you must simplify, otherwise you do lose points. All answers need to be simplified down. That's where your rules come into handy, your divisibility rules, right? So 5 and 0, if a number ends in a 5 or a 0, we know that they're divisible by 5. So you could have done these by 5. It would have taken you a little bit of time to get to the 1/4, but it still would have worked. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, so I have a decimal here, 1.4, and I would read this as 1 and 4/10. Remember, whenever we see a decimal, we say the word and the 4 is in the tenths place, so I say that place value. So I read this as 1 and 4/10. I'm going to write exactly what I just said, 1 and 4/10. So this is a mixed number, okay? Now, I would still need to simplify my fraction part down. So if you notice, 4/10 can be simplified. Don't forget to carry over the whole number. That's one very common mistake students make. They simplify the 4/10 and then their final answer, they forget to carry that 1 over. All right. So 4 and 10, those are both even. So I know I can divide by 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And it just so happens I cannot simplify any further. So 1 and 2/5 is my final answer. Remember, you guys have your divisibility rules in your binder. Take those out for simplifying to help you out. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, So here I have 3.015. So I'm going to read this as the decimal it is. 3 and 15, and the 5 is in the thousandths place. So this would be 3 and 15 thousandths. So I'm going to write exactly what I'm saying. So 3 and 15 thousandths. Okay, now I can simplify this. Don't forget, carry over your whole number because that's what I said earlier most students forget about. So I'm going to carry over my 3. Now, my numerator and denominator ends in a 5 and a 0. So I can divide both by 5. They're both divisible by 5. 15 divided by 5 will give me 3. So 1,000 divided by 5 is going to give me 200. So right now I have 3 and 3 over 200. Okay, so now 3 and 200, they are not divisible by the same number, so this would be my final answer. I would have 3 and 3 out of 200 for my final answer. So don't forget, for today's Do Now, make sure you are simplifying all of your answers down. Make sure when you are looking to see what the decimal, how you would read it, make sure you're using the correct place value, because if you use the incorrect place value, obviously your answer would end up being wrong. All right, I will talk to you soon.